Teachers of Reddit, what is the biggest holy red flag of any kind you've seen from a student? NSFW. I teach in an area that has been very affected by the opioid epidemic. I taught a student who was well known to be addicted to heroin. He was also the person who gave his mother her first dose of the drug. His mother died of an overdose. The last time I saw him he had self-tattooed on his arm "I killed my mom" in huge letters. Student skipped the week or two that he had pool time at pay. Cancelled his parents at conferences he was exhibiting some gang tendencies. Oddly so were the parents. Found out later that year he skipped pool pay class because he had his last name tattooed across his back in Old English. This was a 14-year-old. I had a student last week tell me to hold out my hand because he had a surprise for me. I did it out of curiosity and he placed a 9mm round in my hand. This is 2 months after I had a student tell everyone via Snapchat he was gonna shoot me and another teacher up. I just shook my head and called administration to deal with that BS. This year I had a female student, middle school, who had cut her arm so many times you couldn't really see the skin. Just a bunch of bloody, scabby cuts. She hid it well at school as it was winter and the students were all wearing sweaters. We only found out because one of her friends started crying and told me I needed to talk to her immediately. My friend runs a swim club for kids. She once got a complaint from some mothers that one 8-year-old boy was performing fellatio on some 6-year-old boys in the changing room. The kid wasn't allowed to come back. And it turns out that his grandfather molested him. That's where he learned the whole thing. Had them producing a book report with a few sentences and some pictures. Kid had an abridged version of some Penguin classic. And everything was good barring one question. What did you enjoy most about this story? Apostrophe. He gets mad and kills his family. Followed by scrolling image of mutilation. Completely unrelated to the story and just slipped in there with some good work. Source. Wife is a teacher. 8th grader would smear his own on the restroom walls. Threatened to RP my wife in the comment section on her classroom YouTube channel. Rookie mistake using your real name as your username. When called out for it, parents lawyered up and said no one could ever prove his account wasn't hacked, so we had no way of knowing it was him. Later my wife found a note near her classroom door in his handwriting saying he was going to shoot up the school and that he already knew where everyone was going to hide. School went on lockdown and he was later found hiding in the woods behind the soccer fields. When questioned about it he said he ran because he was scared. I could go on. Kid will likely shoot up his high school. When I first began teaching, we had a student who seemed to get a lot of satisfaction out of manipulating or hurting others. Her behavior escalated, leading to a brief hospital stint after killing her puppy. When she returned to school, she bragged gleefully about it and shortly thereafter began writing death threats in blood on the walls of bathroom stalls. As much as I hate to say it, she's one I wouldn't be surprised to see in the news in a few years. University. Freshman tried to add my class late, but all the slots allotted by admin had been filled. He approached me after the first day of class and asked to be added anyway. Very flat affect. No emotion at all. I told him that I couldn't add him. And he replied, "If you don't add me, I'll follow you everywhere. Even to the bathroom." I'm not a huge guy, but I easily doubled his body weight. Not the situation to try to make a threat, I'd say. I was nonplussed for a moment. So I asked him to repeat what he just said. And he did. Word for word. He did. I could tell this guy was a nutcase. And in hindsight I probably should have reported the incident. Instead, I just kind of laughed it off and walked away. Never saw him again. To my knowledge. Kinda doubt that he made a smooth transition into adulthood. Though. There was a kid I knew in 2nd grade, he was wild. When we were in the same class together, the teacher would regularly have to call the assistance team, a group of teachers that would restrain unruly kids and were trained on how to do so. He would throw desks, chairs, scissors once if remember correctly. The following year, we weren't in the same classroom but it was a small school so you'd still hear about things. He tripped a very pregnant teacher causing her to go into labor. No idea how he didn't get expelled for that, but the final straw was when he found a rusty pocket knife on the playground during recess and stabbed a student sitting next to him in the stomach with it for no reason. Still wonder what happened to him. Oh, and he sucked his thumb regularly. Edit. Assistance team. I meant assistance team. Why does it take so much to get a student expelled? Why do districts insist on endangering the kids that don't act out by not expelling the students that are disruptive, injure teachers and their babies, and stab students? College professor. Guy just a little bit older than me wrote a paper in which he shared a fantasy about beating the out of a younger female therapist for not listening to him about his problems. He was constantly distracting in class, cheated in every way imaginable, and just struck me as off. I repeatedly put in student of concern notices about him, because I really thought something was going to go wrong. Shortly after the class ended he took his newborn kid and ran away to a different state. My cousin, currently in 1st grade, had a girl in his class throw a computer tower in their classroom and slapped and punched the teacher as she tried to gain control. To my knowledge, nothing ever happened to the girl because the teacher and the girl's mother are good friends. They don't want to ruin her time at school by reporting the incident. They don't want to ruin her time at school by reporting the incident. Translation. They don't want to confront the fact that this student has a serious problem and might need some help. A buddy of mine teaches the special needs class in a high school. For him it was the kid who he'd been told liked to throw things. That wasn't entirely uncommon for his class. But when he noticed the kid was wearing adult diapers, he went straight to the office to review the kid's file. His red flag sense was right. The kid liked to throw. My buddy went to office and has managed to keep the kid out of his class. That was last week. This week he's been told that the school is still trying to get the kid put in his class anyway. They make money for taking these kids. He's fighting it. But Lord know which way it will land. I may have set off a red flag for teachers when I was in 3rd grade. I would always pull my pants all the way down to my ankles when I peed in the urinal. And obviously, I'd constantly get made fun of for it. Well, it got very tiring and hurtful, so one day when I dropped my drawers to pee, the boy that walked up in the urinal beside me, who pee side by side anyway, popped his mouth off and I just nonchalantly pivoted and all up and down his leg. The principal called my mom. And I was tactfully talked to at home about how it's good to stand up for yourself, but that wasn't an appropriate reaction. Then my dad took over and explained how I really needed to not get basically butt-ass naked to pee standing up at a urinal. A student walked in the classroom and said it smells like crystal meth in here. I teach 6-year-olds. I was in charge of an after-school program for JR. High and high school students, 13-18 years old. One time I was waiting for a 13-year-old girl to get picked up with her friend. And this is the conversation I hear from across the room while they were messing with the whiteboard. Girl 1. Draws swastika. Girl 2. You can't do that. That's bad. Girl 1. Why? Girl 2. I don't know. I just know bad. Girl 1. It's okay. My dad has it tattooed on his chest. Me. Edit 1. I was working in a semi-rural part of the US. And dad was a white guy who lived in a trailer park. I'm not one for stereotypes, but I'm pretty sure the guy wasn't Hindu or Buddhist. But I appreciate the sub's ability to always look for a silver lining. Edit 2. Spelling and grammar. Metalgesala dalot sound. There's a kid in this preschool class, aged 5, that says the most off the wall stuff. So far this school year, she has said that her dad is going to come to the school and kill kids and their families. That she has a doll that will come to this other little girl's house and cut her heart out, eat it and cut her legs off. And finally that her dad shoots kittens. At this point, I'm thinking of calling CPS or at least pushing the issue with the school district because there is no reasonable explanation as to why a 5-year-old would be saying these disturbing things. Please call CPS. There are so many red flags there. I had to make my first CPS call this year. It was tough because I thought I might be overreacting. It was just something the kid mentioned to me offhand. They ended up opening an official case with the family. So clearly they deemed it an urgent situation. Please call. Not a teacher, but had a kid in the 2nd grade with me try to stab my eye out with a pencil. Multiple times. He was obsessed and had to be taken out of class and dealt with on several occasions. Never anyone else either. Just me. His reasoning? I had done the same to him in his past life. The stoic, intense look on his face when he said that still gives me chills. I have seen a lot of behaviors, and they almost all come from a place of not knowing how to get one's needs met and not having good emotional regulation. The big red flag, and the kids you need to be careful around, are the ones who can control themselves just fine, but lack empathy. Yeah. There's a huge difference between an abused kid and a sociopath. Abused kids act out and act crazy. You just have to go a few feet and dig and you'll find the source of the trauma. Sociopaths. Oh boy. I had a classmate who wanted to hurt the kids for fun. If there was blood, he would celebrate it. No matter if he was expelled. Blood for the blood god. The worst. I had a student with claw marks over her eyes. Like legit looked like someone scratched her eyelid. The whole upper area right under her eyebrow was scarred and it was like too small to have been an animal. Me and a co-worker asked about it. She started to get defensive and once a kid starts stammering and making excuses. You gotta make the call to CPS. I got fired for making the call. I apparently hurt the school standing in the neighborhood because I snitched. And the kid got removed from her family and sent to another state. Another kid had trouble staying up in class. Turned out his house was at the center of a coke bust later that year. Fun times. Wait. Why on earth were you fired for doing the right thing and calling CPS? When did this happen? Because now it's illegal in some states to not contact CPS if you suspect child abuse. I teach middle school math. We have a Saturday school once a month for students with failing grades to get extra help in whatever subject. One kid did not want to be there and he was placed in a conference room in the office so he didn't disturb the other kids. So this kid pulled out a tooth. An adult tooth. He pulled it out of his face. It was terrible. I was giving a spelling test to my 3rd graders and one student calmly got out her glue and poured it in her ear. Sounds like a reasonable response to me. I'm sure she just wanted to block out noise in order to focus on the test. Not a teacher, but in school many years ago, I had a friend of a friend who was very obsessed with the army and blood gore. He lacked social skills and kids made fun of him all the time. He asked the stupidest questions in class. One day some kid made fun of him and went too far. He drew a large pocket knife from his pocket and poked the bully with it and then exclaimed he had a list in his book bag. The school security guard busted in less than 20 seconds later. Took the knife and checked his book bag. Sure enough, he had a list of about 15-20 people on it. He got expelled and I have not seen him since the incident. I doubt he is coming back to school. Edit. This was high school. Me. Why are you peeing on your cot at nap time? Student. Because I don't want to sleep. Me. Why don't you want to sleep? Student. Because they'll hurt me. Turns out big sister would come into her room and hit her when she slept at home. I still worry about that family. Mom taught for 30+ years. About 10 of them were in a self-contained classroom. So, if kids didn't succeed in this self-contained unit, they were expelled entirely, so worst of the worst. She loved the kids and over that time had only 2 that truly frightened her. The common thread was they had no affect whatsoever, they were never happy. Never sad. Never jealous. Never vengeful. It was just nothing. At least the kids who were angry, frustrated, apathetic, silly, etc. feeling something. Of those 2 kids, one is now in jail for a long time. She doesn't know what became of the other one. There was a kid in my brother's 5th grade class who tattooed himself with pen ink. It worked and he was forced to wear sleeves when he played on the middle school basketball team so they didn't show. He's in prison. Edit. I should clarify that doing a few dots or a little smiley face isn't a big deal. People do that all the time and turn out alright. This kid did his entire arm down to the elbow. My friend teaches and told me this. He had a student who constantly picked at his scabs. He would rip them off and eat them. Then lick the blood off his fingers. Then pull alcohol swabs out of his backpack and clean the wound while smiling creepily. He made everyone feel super uncomfortable and grossed out. But no matter what, he wasn't removed from the class. Finally one day my friend comes back from the teacher's lounge to find him using a letter opener under his skin and moving it back and forth. Blood everywhere. When asked what he was doing, he said his skin itches and it's best to get it at the source. The kid was finally removed from the school. Not a teacher but in an outpatient childhood mental health setting, so a little different. Used to have a kid in my class that enjoyed hurting others. Laughing right after throwing something at a student and laughing harder at them being affected by said action. Had a kid who would pinch and slap a kid with an infection around his mouth purely to see the pain. When he lost his she didn't flinch. Showed no remorse and was scarily intelligent. I think there may be some issues there. Also a kid putting a Stanley knife to another girl's throat and laughing as she tried to free herself. The first girl was 8 and the second was 10 or 11. It is my first and only year of teaching. Edit. Everyone asking about the knife. Which is fair enough. I cannot begin to explain how much scarier the girl was though. For reasons I can't explain. I would genuinely go some kind of path, but I'm not a psychologist and don't know the difference. Edit 2. Got bigger than expected, this did. Finally feel I have some friends. Sorry if I don't reply to your comments and that. Hopefully any questions you have already been answered. The friends thing was a joke. I have at least 2 in real life. My mum used to teach in a boys' secondary. This one kid was generally an asshole, violent, rude, provocative. One day the deputy head dropped down dead of a heart attack in front of some of the kids at break time. Less than 10 minutes later this particular kid was imitating the teacher dying in front of the others and laughing. For entertainment. Not in the least fazed by what he'd seen. And had no idea that what he was doing was horrifying. Edit, just to clarify. This kid was in year 10. So 14 or 15. This was not an awkward way to deal with what he'd experienced. He just thought it was funny. The teacher's wife worked at the school. And when she came back after the funeral, he did his little impression for her too. My mom teaches special ed and self-contained, and one student in particular stands out. This student always kept toys with them to keep them calm during class, but for obvious reasons was told she can't bring them during tests. My mom was pretty lax on this if she didn't think the student would cheat and allowed her to bring them anyways. Fast forward a bit to the student needing to take the SAT and my mom didn't allow her to have her toys because she had a rule book to follow. The following day the student looked at my mom, whispered our home address and kids' names, including me, and said, "Don't take my toys." My mom has taught over 30 years and that's the only student she noped out of teaching. Not me. But another teacher at the school I work at had a kid start masturbating in the middle of a state test. He asked the kid to stop but the kid just ignored him. Went and got an assistant principal, who said they would let the kid finish the test before pulling him out. Too late to the party. But my mom has taught for near 40 years. The only kid that ever truly scared her was a kid that used to act like he was sucking up until he thought she wasn't paying attention. Case in point was when she gave everyone a Christmas gift before break. He fawned over how great the gift was and that he was cherish it forever. The second he thought she wasn't looking, he threw it in the garbage. He was 9. Side note. I worked with him at a telemarketing place in high school. I remember when he told me that he had been diagnosed as a sociopath. He was eating an ice cream cone while explaining it to me and said, basically, a sociopath means I would feel the same way eating this ice cream cone as I would killing a dog. Eesh. Edit. The fact that he explained his diagnosis so clearly and understandably is very interesting to me. I once had a young student, in a fit of frustration, say that he wished he could take me to his dad's shed. Alarm bells rang immediately and the boy's family was contacted since we obviously worried about the possibility of abuse. Upon investigation, it was found that the only thing going on in the shed was the boy taking mice and squirrels he caught in his neighborhood and literally crucifying them on little paddle pop stick crosses. A few had even been set alight. This was a long time ago. I'm not a teacher but was doing a co-op placement as an educational assistant when studying sociology. We're talking like 15 years ago, give or take. Had a student in the class, with behavioral problems mind you, walk up to another teacher who was pregnant and proceed to tell her he was going to cut the fetus out of her. Nobody really knew how to react. And the tone in his voice, look in his eyes was up there with the most evil I've seen up till that point in my life. Another sad one. There was a girl who was very reactive to boys. Like, you know how kids would have crushes? She would go above and beyond. She would chase after older boys in class. Get all fangirly and stuff, but like she's a 4th grader, so it was a little odd. At least until one of the teachers took her aside and told her to not be a harlot like her mom. Turns out her mom is a local crack hoe and she picked up a lot of those behaviors from her mom and was getting a reputation among the 5th grade boys. So yeah. That one disturbed the out of me because who knows what else her mom was subjecting her to. I get a bit worried about the ones arrested for setting random little fires. I've had to over the years both super creepy and hard to connect with. It was obvious they needed help in a big way, but for various reasons, i.e. parents in denial, weren't really getting it. I deal with a lot of kids who have been in the justice system, but mostly those two set off my internal alarms. Generally the kids have just had a rough time and or made mistakes and need compassion, help and someone to believe in them. Had a student threaten to kill a teacher. You know, as an artistic joke. In theater class. Admin passes it over. It's fine. Later. On the day of the Parkland shooting. He's one of the many kids arrested nationwide for threatening a copycat. You know. As a joke. My roommate from college was going for an early education degree. While he was assigned to be a student teacher, he encountered a young female student who had impulses to molest males. This girl had a female aide assigned to her most of the day to stop her from leaving her seat to stick her hands down the pants of the boys in the class. Or run up and grope adult men in the building. He was told to never be left alone with her and to always have a female staff present at all times to corroborate his side of things. Had a student, 7th grade, once try to eat a microscope slide. She seemed genuinely confused as to why myself and the other adult cared so much, and begrudgingly spat it out. Wasn't a teacher then, but I am now. Does that count? Anyway, there was this kid in my high school who would do stuff like pull his dick out in class, pee on people's cars, and other generally dumbed ouchy stuff. Pretty much everyone on campus agreed he would be going to prison within 5 years of graduation. 3 years after we graduated, there was a serial arsonist in the next town over. It was this dickhead. Because of course it was. Had a classmate who drank pen ink. I remember a kid in 5th grade that would in his pants reach down there, pull some out, roll up little ducky balls and throw it at the other kids. All the while laughing like he was having the time of his life. That's gotta be some kind of red flag. Edit. I'm not teacher, by the way. But I saw the question and instantly thought of this kid. I was in the 5th grade in 1980. The protocol for handling this kind of behavior in children is probably different now. Hopefully. He got some help.